What's up, pumpers? Jerome here with another TBC video. Today we're going to be talking about my thoughts on the Burning Crusade expansion so far and how everything's been handled, my feelings on the game so far, and what I've been up to. If you like the video, make sure to toss the video a like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. It really does help a lot and allow me to keep coming out with more videos like this one.
You are not prepared.
First up, I wanted to talk about my experience so far in the Burning Crusade. So basically, if you've been keeping up with my stream and the YouTube videos, I was playing a warrior back in Classic, and when I played on the PTR and private servers as well, I found myself not really loving the warrior gameplay as much this expansion. I felt like I was getting CC'd and constantly taken out of the game, and so I wanted a little bit of a change of pace. I still love playing warrior, but I wanted to try something different. So I went healer this time around. I'm playing a restoration druid. In raids, you're very important as a healer. You just absolutely pump crazy single target heals and a little bit of raid healing as well. Just feels like a super in-demand class and very strong. And the best part about Resto Druid is I feel like I'm on the upswing. Every single patch, Resto Druid gets a little bit stronger until maybe Season 4 or so. It's just going to be awesome, going up and up and up and up. But right now, I just wanted to change the pace, and it does feel good to be in demand. Back in Classic, everybody was a warrior. You didn't really need that many more. I just feel really secure in my position. I don't really have to stress out too much. It's not like when I was DPS, and it was always like, okay, if you don't perform here, you might not be able to come to the next raid. But even if, I make a mistake, I know I'm relatively secure, which is nice. Honestly, TBC has been really nice. And it hasn't just been the TBC, it's just been the role I've been playing. Healing is really fulfilling when you queue up for Battlegrounds. I've done a lot of Battlegrounds with Renruki, for example, and it's been awesome. Because, it makes a difference. You're actually helping someone and healing them and making them play better. But yeah, TBC's been great to me. The role change, it's been really positive. There are some negatives that I'll get into during the video. But overall, it's been pretty awesome. And yeah, definitely recommend playing Resto Druid. Definitely recommend playing TBC right now. It does seem to be on the upswing. More people playing. So definitely get in there if you can. Would recommend it. The first thing I wanted to get into was the content rollout speed. It's been a little bit here, all over the place. The game launched probably way too soon. I would say maybe a month too early at least. Nobody had any time to farm Battlegrounds. The Arena Season 1 kind of felt a little imbalanced the entire time. It did feel like the entire Phase 1 lasted a little bit too long. A lot of people were kind of getting bored with Crusade and the raids. It came out too early and it lasted a little bit too long. But overall, I wasn't really that burned out. I'm still enjoying Crusade. I still go back even in Phase 2. Been enjoying Crusade, enjoying the raids. Would definitely like to see Phase 3 within maybe 3 months from now would be great. Or even, 2.8 months. It's just a little bit early. I'm really enjoying Phase 2 right now. It's an absolute blast. Definitely don't want things to get stale. We don't want it to be, for example, the situation we had with Classic, where you had Phase 3 lasting forever. Like, at some point, we're going to get that Zolaman patch, right? And it's going to last way too long. It's going to be kind of awkward. That's what we need to avoid, because that's when the player base will plummet, is when there's a long period with no content, and everyone feels like they've kind of completed their characters for a while. So we need to just make sure the content keeps flowing. So one thing I wanted to address is server population issues. So if you've been keeping up with the Classic WoW Reddit, you're going to be seeing all sorts of complaints about server population right now, and the Ironforge Pro site gives a lot of good data here. There are a ton of 100% to 0% PvP servers. We're talking servers with 100% Alliance or 100% Horde, which is really bad for the game. It is actually genuinely a problem, because if you're getting camped all day, you're not going to want to log in, and you're forced to pay $25 to transfer. And I think it's also psychologically not great if you're on the 100% side, because you no longer have any rival at all. You're basically just playing on a PvE server. I think, at least in my experience, I've always played the game more when I play on a PvP server. It feels like there's more of a rivalry and more of a reason to log in, and that's being taken away from a lot of players. There are a lot of previously relatively healthy servers at launch that are basically gone now, or basically not worth playing on, and there are only a couple of giant servers that people are transferring to, which does kind of make sense considering arenas. You have to play with the largest pool of players, and then when some new content drops in the future, there's going to be massive queues. It's basically saying we're never getting rid of layering at this point, and that may be okay, but it's time we had at least a discussion on what Blizzard could do about this. I don't think it's right that they're charging the $25, considering that it's kind of their problem to deal with. It's not great to be on a server with 100% of one faction and it's definitely something that needs to be dealt with. So on the topic of server population, the game does feel like it's growing. I know a lot of people are going to say anecdotally, wait, it's harder to find groups now, but that just makes sense. A lot of people don't need to do heroics and normal dungeons anymore, so that's fine. It's just part of the life cycle of TBC, is that eventually people aren't doing dungeons and there's only going to be a few tanks left around. I think the population of the game is actually in a pretty healthy state. According to Ironforge, we're seeing a lot of growth on a lot of the big servers. Obviously, this comes at the expense of the servers that people are leaving from, but I do see more interest in TBC. It does feel like a lot of people are talking about it. The game does feel like it's actually growing, so it's very important, I think, that Blizzard make sure they don't make any big missteps here. We cannot have the classic situation again where we have one phase that lasts for like 4 months, 5 months, that doesn't really have new content. That's the kind of thing that will really hurt the game. We can't have that here. That's not going to work anymore. We cannot let this game die down. I don't think people will come back as quickly as Blizzard thinks. And yeah, it's just really important Blizzard keeps the content coming and keeps fixing bugs, anything game breaking, any issues people are having. We need to continue to get manpower on this game. TBC is such a great game and needs to get the love it deserves. Next up, I want to talk about arenas. So I've been playing a lot of arenas, really have a solid grasp on what's going on now. I've gotten up to 1850 with my variety of partners. I feel like I'm kind of putting an equal effort on my side, which feels very rewarding. I'm not just, hitting up anybody and just being like, hey, can you play with me? I'm really trying to actually grind it out and figure out what the heck I'm doing. And obviously, we'll see a lot of collaboration in the future on my end for sure, but I just wanted to make sure I knew what I was doing first before I hit up all the big guns. I mean, if you want to see Jerome and Swifty or Jerome and Van Rookie, we're definitely going to make that happen soon. And I do feel like I can hold my own now. I can really perform solidly now, and obviously a lot of work to do, improvement every single day. Do like arenas a lot. I think they're probably my favorite thing to do in WoW right now. Absolutely loving it. There are some things I wanted to talk about with arenas, but just to start it off, I think TBC arenas are pretty well balanced. They're very fun, very addicting, and I really, really, really enjoy playing them. There are a significant hurdles that need to be addressed, but overall, I would say positive for arenas. And yeah, hopefully more people get involved. There's things Blizzard needs to do to make that happen, but it really is a crown jewel of TBC. In terms of what Blizzard needs to do, first of all, we do need to fix the team situation. So right now, if I want to play with 2 partners during a week, I have to basically pick between them and throw away my entire rating that I've gained with one partner, and then I won't get rewards if I get a lower rating with the other partner. So people are very, very reluctant to play with each other, and collaboration is almost non-existent. You basically find your team you're happy with, and you cycle in like 1 or 2 people at most. It really stifles collaboration and creativity and playing with all sorts of different people. I mean, I'm sure in arenas you want to see Asmongold and Peo and Summit 1G and Nick Merckx and Kit Boga. You want to see all your favorite players and well, your favorite personalities, right? And that's just not happening because everyone's absolutely petrified to leave their team and lose rating. And Blizzard needs to step in and do something. The rating system, I understand it's very complicated. I understand they're doing the best with what they have, but this is just not going to fly. It's something Blizzard is going to have to look at, maybe add some polls or surveys or something where they give a couple options for players to see what they want, and maybe we all, kind of crowdsource this together. That could be a good way to do it RuneScape style. Maybe we do a poll or something to figure out what MMR system people want. But ultimately, this system is not going to work. I don't mind the MMR system, but I do mind the team system, which really limits creativity. It limits collaboration. But yeah, it's going to limit WoW and Twitch. It's going to limit WoW on YouTube. If you go to watch WoW and it's the same people over and over again playing together, imagine, I don't know, a real giant celebrity comes to WoW, The Rock. And The Rock can only play with one person. Like, that wouldn't be very fun. You want to see The Rock play with all your favorite streamers and YouTube creators and really mix it up. That's just one example, but I really think it is something that needs to be fixed. Speaking of arena collaboration, we've seen a large ban wave in arenas, and this is very controversial. Basically, a lot of people are losing their titles because they played with someone that ended up getting banned during the season, and that when you finish the season, if someone on your team is banned, you do not get the reward. My take on this is basically that it is unfair, definitely, for the players, because there is basically no way to know if someone is piloting. Someone could even maliciously do it, and you're just not going to know until later on. I do kind of understand the logic, though, because in the Olympics, if you're on a relay and you're caught cheating, your teammates get disqualified too. Now, obviously, it's a little different here because usually the bans are not for directly impacting your actual team. It's more like, auxiliary things to make gold, for example, or buying or selling gold. So I don't really have a hot take here. I think I can see where Blizzard's coming from. I do think the obvious solution here is just have Blizzard put more manpower on bans. If you're gonna ban people, do it when they cheat, when they break the rules. Why wait until after the season? It would literally solve the entire problem instantly. Another thing with arenas I wanted to cover was class variety. So I do think right now we do have a big problem in TBC, which is that there isn't a lot of variety, and especially in healers. Unfortunately, and myself included, everybody picked Druid this time around. Druid is just too freaking awesome. It's getting better and better and better. Why would you play anything else as a healer? It's just an absolute blast in arenas and raids everywhere. Druids are just amazing. And we're seeing the problem here. There are not really any shamans, no holy paladins. I swear I queued into arenas last night and like 15 of the 20 games I played were rogue mage. And yeah, that's not, exactly the statistics, but it is the lack of variety is a huge problem. I think it will turn people off of watching arenas, which will in turn turn them off of playing. We need to, whatever small things, whatever bug fixes, whatever changes we can make to make certain classes a little more viable. One other thing about arenas I think is a real problem, it's real bottleneck, is people have to do so many battlegrounds to be viable in arenas. It is a massive problem. I know countless people that are great players. They have no interest in arenas because they would have to play 100 or 200 hours just to get the gear to even get started in arenas. There is no real way to catch up. And I think that's the biggest problem. It doesn't feel worth it to have to do 100 or 200 hours just to get into arenas and have worse gear than everyone you're playing against. There has to be some kind of better catch-up mechanic. We need that ASAP. Blizzard needs to do some things that maybe they weren't intending just to catch people up. I think it would grow the game a heck of a lot. If you have a warrior right now, it would take you 200 hours to get the gear you need. It's just too much time. No one's going to bother doing it unless they're doing this for a living. And that's a huge problem for getting new players into the game. Now that we've talked about arenas, I wanted to go over battlegrounds. So Blizzard really has gone all in on hashtag changes for battlegrounds. There are so many new changes to battlegrounds now. You can have horde versus horde battlegrounds. The queues are basically instantaneous. The game quality seems a little bit low, honestly. It does feel like they lost something along the way by doing the horde versus horde queues. It does seem like whatever it is, maybe it's just that I've never played against a horde before. I do feel like there's often 6 or 7 resto druids in every single war song on each side, which is really weird and honestly maybe just our druid fault. Maybe we just need to be playing other classes. I think it might be time to look into some sort of role-based queue for battlegrounds just to get the game quality up a little bit. See, I'm a resto druid. I can enjoy a battleground no matter what. I can always just heal people. Doesn't matter. I can run flags in war song. I can keep everyone alive in a Wrathy Basin. I can do pretty good work in Eye of the Storm, even when the games are a little bit stompy. I do think the battleground quality has dropped a little bit. Also worth noting that pre-mates are still a thing, and are still pretty annoying to play against when you're solo queuing. It's just not that much fun to queue into a pre-mate of any size, no matter what Blizzard will limit it to. Like, they've tried a bunch of things. 5 cap, for example, limiting to 5 people. It's still not that much fun to run into pre-mates as a solo. I know Blizzard doesn't want to add a solo queue, but a solo queue in Battlegrounds, complete with a little bit of a role queue, like a loose role queue, would really make Battlegrounds a treat. The lack of a cross-realm queue really does hurt Battlegrounds, in my opinion. Like, if pre-made versus pre-made was a mode, and I could queue with anybody from my stream, for example, it'd be such a fun thing. I would have so much fun. And arenas, if I could do viewer arenas or just play with anybody from any server, there's so many great players in other servers. I just don't understand how this is not a thing yet. It's definitely something that needs to be looked at. Now I want to talk about raids, and I do think raids are where the game has shined. A lot of people have complaints about bugs with the new phase of raids. I really don't have that many complaints. Ultimately been loving phase 2. It's really hard, which is maybe something Blizzard is regretting right now. A very small percentage of TBC guilds have completed both TK and SSC completely, and that is maybe not great for the game. There are all sorts of interesting ripple effects because of that, but I do think it's nice to have things to work towards, and it just doesn't feel like pushover content. It feels like a real accomplishment. There's really no room for slacking. It's really fun. Everyone has to analyze stuff and figure out what they can do better, especially on Lady Vash and KT. Just really, really awesome fights. I'm so happy they're pre-nerfed. I think it's a great idea. However, there are downsides. I will say the average guild is getting ravaged right now if you're trying to progression raid. The amount of gold it takes to progression raid is unbelievable. It is absolutely astronomical. We have so many guildies that had thousands of gold, now down to nothing now, and they can't even afford a flask anymore. It's a huge problem. It's one of the biggest issues, and the reason why Blizzard never really made the raids that hard in Classic in the first place until Nax, and you saw why, because in Nax, people didn't have the gold to raid. A lot of people quit because of it. It wasn't worth it, and here in SSC and TK, I do feel like it's a little more rewarding, and there's more reason to do it because we have more phases coming up, but it is definitely something that's probably making Blizzard think twice. One thing I think Blizzard could do would be to creatively find ways to get more gold in the game. I think a good example of this was the summer fire festival that we had, where there was so much gold to be made from the mini games. I think Blizzard could do some things to creatively add in maybe dailies earlier, or something that would allow you to get a little bit of extra gold as the average player. Maybe add in extra gold for dailies, or allow PvP dailies to be repeated. Ideally, Blizzard could find ways to make raiding less expensive, whatever they can think of, or just find ways to inject a little more gold in the game. Obviously, we don't want WoW token, but there's gotta be some solutions. In the same vein, you may have noticed that GDKPs are coming back in full force. A little bit controversial. I'm not a huge GDKP guy personally. I do find them to make the raids a little bit less fun for me as someone who doesn't have a lot of gold. I think GDKPs right now are going to continue to proliferate, and I don't really know what Blizzard should do about it. I do think it takes a little bit away from the game, especially when people roll up that have never really played their class before, and they have 50,000 gold, and they buy all the rare items, and it just doesn't feel great. It takes away from the sense of accomplishment of having rare epic items. I mean, the first Warglaives will probably be purchased with GDKP. I just hope GDKPs don't take over the entire game like they did in Classic. It definitely took away a lot of the enjoyment from my raiding. In the last two phases, it seemed like everybody wanted to do GDKP all the time, and there almost was no point in actually gearing up your character normally. Speaking of raiding, it's worth talking about the PTR situation. So basically, in TBC, Blizzard went ham with the PTR. You could basically full test TK and SSC for a really long time. It was a very, very long time, which gave a ton of guilds a ton of time practicing, and I think it took away a little bit from the tier. It was just such a long time, and it seemed like a lot of guilds knew exactly what they were doing going into SSC and TK, and you could say, yeah, they could hit private servers, but Blizzard could do little tweaks here and there to make it so private server players don't get a huge advantage, and I think it would make the tier a little more fun to watch. I think PTR is great because it saves people a lot of gold. I think there's two ways to go about it. Either PTR is more encouraged so everybody does the raids, which I don't think is a great idea because it makes the raids less exciting for the first time. Like, when we first got to Lady Vash, it was a little bit less exciting because I had done it on PTR before. I think the real solution that Blizzard needs to do is stop relying on people to test their game. Really, I don't think that we should be able to see all the content for a month before it comes out. It should be much more limited, and maybe not all the bosses. I think that this new meta of all the players testing the raids and submitting bug reports is kind of weird to me. I think it takes away from the game. When I first did Nax, I didn't PTR, I didn't do any of that. When I was watching Nax, I was like, wow, what are these bosses? What the heck is going on here? It felt epic, it felt amazing, it felt the way it should, and having done all the bosses back in the PTR, I don't feel the same way, and I know most people don't either. Changing the subject a little bit, I want to talk about esports. So one of my favorite things about WoW is that there's always esports intertwined with the game. Always feels like there's some big event coming up, some kind of league, and I think TBC definitely needs that as well. It's high time we get some big leagues going on. I want to watch it, maybe even participate, would be a blast. Maybe open qualifiers, maybe some sort of awesome tournament to watch. I think it would be really cool. Classic had a couple events like this. They didn't go nearly as in-depth as they could have with the Warsong and AB tournaments. I think TBC could do 10 times better and have way more people interested. That's what I'm hoping for. I think it's time we get some esports going. Next up, I want to talk about boosting, particularly the mage boosting meta that has evolved in TBC. Just like in Classic, you can absolutely AFK your way from 60 to 70 without moving a muscle, and that's maybe not great. I do have a lot of friends that do boosting, the real Esquire, Joker D, for example, Arleus, and I love the art to it. I love the amount of gameplay you can, the mechanics you can really hone down and improve your runs and become the best, and it's cool. It's a cool part of the game. It has a high skill ceiling, but it is kind of trivializes a lot of the leveling. And I do feel like it's almost weird now to see people out in the world leveling. Blizzard tried to solve boosting. They tried to nerf the boost. They didn't really do a great job of that. I don't know how serious they were about doing it. It's a thing, again, it's just worth noting that, again, the game world feels a little empty. Not really anybody playing, and especially because of the paid boost. There's nobody out in the game world playing leveling because everybody is already 58. And here's the thing, it's not bothering me that much. I think it's helping the game a little bit. It is getting more people to play at a high level, and more people to raid with, more people to play arenas against, more people to play battlegrounds with. The population is unequivocally higher because of the paid boost. It has not really affected my gameplay in a bad way. There might have been a few dungeons where I was like, wow, I don't know what just happened, and maybe there were some boosties in there, but hey, I haven't been really bothered by it. You know, it's been good to have a high population game to play, and I do think the game probably would have been dead without boost. I don't think there would have been that many people to play with. I can assume probably the average person in TBC is a boosted character, and that's a strong assumption, but it does feel like I see those mounts all the time. I feel like a lot of people are boosted, and so I guess it honestly was not that as bad of a thing as people thought. It seems to be turning out okay. It has obviously a slippery slope. It takes away the prestige of being 70 and people thinking, wow, you really know what you're doing. Now that's not a guarantee. You might have been boosted from 58 to 70 after buying a boost, so it's possible you have no idea what you're doing. But hey, I'm not as worried as I was when the game originally announced the boost. It doesn't seem as bad. One final note I wanted to talk about TBC is just there isn't a ton of variety with it. I feel like I watch a lot of TBC streams, and I'm always kind of tuning into the same thing. It's always a raider, or it's always someone in arenas talking to their teammates, and there's really nothing else. And I do think this is the time where Blizzard should get involved in other things, like the hardcore community. I think there's these really cool projects going on. Anytime Blizzard sees a cool project, they should be like, hey, we should get in on this, because TBC has a lot of cool stuff you can do. You can do really, really, really interesting things. The professions are awesome. The dailies are incredible. The open world questing, the leveling, it feels great. There's all sorts of open world PvP opportunities that basically nobody does. There's all sorts of interesting stuff in the game that basically nobody touches because there's only really two things people think about. They think about raids and they think about arenas. I hope Blizzard gets behind stuff like the Race to World First Ragnaros and Hardcore, where they're going to do a completely deathless Ragnaros from 1 to 60. I think that's a really cool project. I think stuff like that needs to get more love, because when I open up Twitch, I don't want to watch just the same old thing over and over again. Blizzard could easily add a custom ladder, for example, for hardcore deaths. I think there's so much that they could potentially do to work with streamers when they have projects, to work with players when they have ideas. I think it's time we see more variety to keep the game fresh and keep people coming back. That's all for today. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know in the comments how your TBC journey has been going so far. I have been loving it. Definitely a couple things to nitpick here and there, but overall it's been a really positive experience. Thank you so much for watching, and remember to have a great day.